Good morning and welcome to the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor with you, and here are the latest headlines. India and US signed bilateral logistics exchange memorandum of agreement. Militaries on both sides will be able to use assets for repair and replenishment. Agreement signed during Defence Minister's ongoing US visit. US Secretary of State John Kerry in India to co-chair second Indo-US strategic and commercial dialogue along with External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj. Kerry scheduled to meet Prime Minister on Wednesday. Committee set up to find alternative for pellet gun summits report to Home Secretary. Blanket ban unlikely. Pellet guns to be used in rarest of rare cases. Bihar continues to reel under floods. 3 more deaths take toll up to 159. Situation improving in Uttar Pradesh. And the suspended Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff defends her record, says her conscience is absolutely clean and she hasn't committed any crime. Senate vote likely later this week to seal her fate. Well, our top story this morning, India and the US have signed the Bilateral Logistics Exchange Memorandum of Agreement or LEMOA. Well, this agreement now makes India and the US logistical allies and enables the militaries on each side to use the other's assets and bases for repair and replenishment of supplies. Now, LEMOA facilitates will be provided on a reimbursable basis and it provides a framework to govern them. The agreement was signed after a meeting between Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar and US Defence Minister Ashton Carter in Washington yesterday. Well, during their meeting, Parrikar and Carter discussed the wealth of progress in bilateral cooperation and deepening strategic partnership between the US and India. The US has agreed to elevate defense, trade and technology sharing with India to a level commensurate with its closest allies and partners. Well, during his stay in the US, Parrikar will visit Boeing's manufacturing facility at Philadelphia. He would also interact with American defense industry representatives at an event organized by the US-India Business Council. Earlier today, Parrikar was accorded an enhanced honor cordon by Carter after he arrived at the Pentagon. Parrikar is on a 3-day visit to the United States.
It's basically logistic support to each other's fleet, like supply of fuel, supply of many other things which are required for joint operations, humanitarian assistance, and many other relief operations. So it's basically will ensure that the both navies can be supportive of each other in the joint operations we do, exercises we do, and there is no provision for any base or any sort of activities to set up a base in India.
With respect to the major defense partnership agreement, that is a very substantial change. It's an enormous change from 50 years of history and a very substantial advance over just a few months ago. And here's the gist of it. It will allow the United States and India to cooperate, which, speaking from the U.S. point of view, in a way that we do only with our closest and most long-standing allies.
Meanwhile, US Secretary of State John Kerry is in India to co-chair the second Indo-US strategic and commercial dialogue to be held in the national capital today. Well, the Strategic and Commercial Dialogue is the main bilateral forum for advancing shared security and economic priorities of US and India. Well, talks will cover a review of the implementation of various initiatives taken in the first summit that was held in Washington, D.C. last year, and other economic matters, as well as terrorism emanating from Pakistan. Well, the dialogue will be co-chaired by External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj and Commerce and Industry Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, along with US Secretary of Commerce Penny Pritzker. Now, John Kerry is also scheduled to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday. Meanwhile, earlier on Monday, Kerry visited Bangladesh and discussed security cooperation after a series of killings by Islamist militants there, as well as economic development and human rights with Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. He said there is evidence to show that the Islamic State is in contact with militants in Bangladesh. And India and the US will also review the progress made on boosting renewable energy, defense ties and smart city projects at the CEO Forum today. The dialogue was elevated into a strategic and commercial dialogue during US President Barack Obama's India visit last year. Now, ahead of the India-US CEO Forum meeting today, Commerce Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on Monday held wide-ranging discussions with the top industry leaders on issues such as energy and manufacturing with a view to boosting economic ties with America. Now, Tata Group Chairman Cyrus Mistry and Dave Sot, CEO of Honeywell, will co-chair the India-US CEO Forum meeting. On to some other news now, and an Australian court has granted temporary injunction against a further publication of leaked Scorpion submarine data by the Australian newspaper. The court granted the injunction on an application moved by French defence firm DCNS that has been rocked by the document leak scandal. Well, the newspaper had earlier said that it will publish the documents regarding the weapons system of the submarine on Monday, but had not done so. The firm's lawyer had told the newspaper that the publication of this highly valuable document causes a direct harm to DCNS and its customer in terms of spread of sensitive and restricted information, image and reputation. Remember, over 22,000 pages of top-secret data on the capabilities of 6 highly advanced submarines being built for the Indian Navy in Mumbai in collaboration with the French company have been leaked. The French public prosecutor has opened a preliminary investigation into the data leak, with the DCNS filing a complaint of breach of trust. Now, Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar said that the leak is not a cause of big worry. Navy Chief also said that it is being viewed very seriously, but it is not a matter of much worry.
Any leak of information is viewed very seriously. We have viewed the leak of the Scorpion data very seriously, and we have asked DCNS to launch an urgent investigation into this. We ourselves have set up a high-level committee to investigate into this. Based on the report of the committee, we will see what mitigation measures need to be taken. ये ज़्यादा चिंता वाली बात नहीं है. अब जो कमिटी बैठी है वो एनालाइज कर रही है, उसमें देखा जाएगा कि क्या डेटा कॉम्प्रोमाइज है और क्या मिटिगेशन मेजर हमने करने पड़ेंगे.
Well, news on Jammu and Kashmir. Well, a government committee set up to find alternatives to pellet guns in the Kashmir Valley has suggested the use of chili-filled grenades and stun-lac shells to combat mobs. The pellet guns are, however, unlikely to be completely banned. They will be fired in the rarest of rare cases. Now, the 7-member expert committee headed by Joint Secretary in the Home Ministry, TV.S.N. Prasad, submitted its report to the Home Secretary on Monday. The panel was constituted after scores of protesters were blinded by the use of pellet guns in the valley. Now, Home Minister Rajnath Singh, during his recent visit to Kashmir, had assured that an alternative to pellet guns will be found. The report was prepared after extensive consultations with security forces and examining the ground realities in Kashmir Valley. The expert committee also recommended standard operating procedures for deployment of this new assortment of non-lethal weapons. Meanwhile, after 51 days, Kashmir slowly limped back to normalcy on Monday with the lifting of curfew in most parts of the valley. Meanwhile, an all-party delegation led by Home Minister Rajnath Singh is expected to visit Jammu and Kashmir next month to interact with various sections of people to find a long-term solution to the problem.
After 51 consecutive days of restrictions, a sight Kashmiris were waiting for. Life in the valley limped back to normal as curfew was lifted in most parts, barring 3 police station areas. As traffic returned to the roads, people too stepped out of their homes, albeit tentatively. On Sunday, in his radio program Man Ki Baat, Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke about unity and love being the basic mantras for addressing the Kashmir problem. This came a day after he met Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti to discuss the issue.
कश्मीर की स्थिति के संबंध में देश के सभी राजनीतिक दलों ने मिलकर के एक स्वर से कश्मीर की बात रखी, दुनिया को भी संदेश दिया, अलगाववादी तत्वों को भी संदेश दिया। जो लोग इन छोटे छोटे बालकों को आगे करके कश्मीर में अशांति पैदा करने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं, कभी न कभी उनको इन निर्दोष बालकों को भी जवाब देना पड़ेगा।
जिस चीज को मोदी जी ने शुरू किया लाहौर जाके, उसके बाद राजनाथ सिंह जी भी गए, तो पाकिस्तान को देर सवेर इस चीज की समझ आ जाएगी, इस चीज को रियलाइज करेंगे। जंगो जदल, एक दूसरे को बुरा भला कहना, उससे हमारे मसले हल नहीं होंगे।
An all-party delegation led by Home Minister Rajnath Singh is likely to visit Jammu and Kashmir on the 4th of September and is expected to interact with a cross-section of people. However, not all political parties support the steps taken by the BJP-PDP alliance.
पिछले 1.5 महीने से, बल्कि 1.5 महीने से भी ज्यादा से सब बिजनेस, तजारत सब ठप हैं, एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशंस ठप हैं, जिसकी वजह से बहुत नुकसान उत्तर प्रदेश को हुआ, जम्मू कश्मीर को हुआ। मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है कि अब उसको कंपनसेट करने के लिए राज्य सरकार और केंद्रीय सरकार मिलकर कोई प्रयास करें।
कश्मीरियत, इंसानियत और जमहूरियत, वहाँ पे तीनों ही खतरे में। अटल जी के बताए रास्ते पर चलना है तो इन तीनों चीज़ों को वापस ला करके वैली में शांति स्थापित होनी चाहिए। जिन्होंने जुल्म जातियाँ की हैं उनको कटघरे में खड़ा करना चाहिए, चाहे वो पत्थर फेंकवाने वाले हों या निहत्तों पर गोली चलाने वाले।
Although curfew has been lifted from most parts of the valley, police and security forces remain on high alert. Assembly of 10 or more people continues to be prohibited. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
On to some other news now. Well, on the second day of his 3-day tour to Kerala, Vice President Hamid Ansari will inaugurate the 90th birth anniversary celebrations of Navjyoti Karunakar Guru at the Santigiri Ashram in Thiruvananthapuram today. The Vice President will also formally open the digital library of the P.N. Panikar Foundation at the Kanaka Kunuku Place. Earlier on Monday, speaking in an event in the honour of renowned educationist Dr. M. Srinivasan in Kollam, Vice President Ansari said that providing education is the best way of serving people. He also said that serving people who are facing economic crisis and social plight is the way forward in bringing change to the society.
Mahatma Gandhi had said that the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Dr. Srinivasan personified this. He believed that the best way to deal with hopelessness was to serve others. He inspired his students to take up studies into social and economic challenges facing the country, particularly the plight of the poorest and the weakest section of our society.
On to some other news. Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held extensive talks with Myanmar President Kyaw in the national capital yesterday. The two sides signed 4 MOUs besides agreeing to step up cooperation in combating insurgency in the region. India also extended support to the new Myanmarese government in ushering all-round growth and development in the country.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi held wide-ranging talks with Myanmar President on Monday. He assured the visiting dignitary that India will stand by Myanmar to develop as a modern nation. Modi also promised full support to Myanmar's internal peace process.
Excellency, your great nation has entered a new era, an era defined by maturity of your leadership and commitment of your people to democracy, and which is accompanied by clear vision and a strong desire of your leadership to make Myanmar a stable and economically prosperous country in the region. Let me assure you that at every step of the way, 1.25 billion people of India will stand by you, both as partners and as friends.
The two leaders resolved to deepen ties and actively cooperate to combat terrorism and insurgency in the region.
We recognize that our security interests are closely aligned, and we agreed on the need to remain sensitive to each other's strategic interests and concerns. To this end, President and I agreed to work together for the safety and security of our people and actively cooperate to combat the common challenges of terrorism and insurgent activity in our region.
Both sides inked 4 MOUs to strengthen cooperation in areas of connectivity, medicine and renewable energy. The Myanmarese president also assured Prime Minister Modi that his government wants strong relations with India.
We thank the government of India, their support to our ongoing reform process and efforts towards achieving peace and national reconciliation. Our two countries have been cooperating within regional and multilateral frameworks such as the East Asia Summit, the BIMSTEC, PSIM, Economic Corridor and the United Nations. Once again, it has been a great pleasure for me to visit India at this juncture and exchange views with leaders of India to further develop our bilateral relations and cooperation in regional and international context.
The visiting president later met President Pranab Mukherjee at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. This is his first overseas visit after assuming office. He took charge after Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy came to power in March this year. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, time to take a very short break here. We'll be back with more news. Stay with us.
Tales that inspire. Stories of social change. A salute to diversity. Promoting public discourse. Events that motivate. Inspiring the innovative spirit. Watch Rajya Sabha television documentaries.
Welcome back after the break. Now, the state assemblies of Maharashtra and Haryana have ratified the Goods and Services Tax Bill unanimously. The Maharashtra Legislative Assembly approved the GST bill at a special one-day session of both houses of the state legislature in Mumbai. The State Finance Minister Sudhir Mungaltiwar tabled the resolution to ratify the bill and said that the Maharashtra government would not incur any losses after the GST comes into effect. Maharashtra became the 10th state to ratify the crucial legislation, billed as the biggest tax reform since independence. Earlier in the Haryana Assembly, on the second day of the monsoon session, the Constitution Amendment Bill on GST was unanimously ratified. The bill was tabled by State Finance Minister Captain Abhimanyu and it was passed after a brief debate. Meanwhile, a special session of the Telangana Legislative Assembly and Council will be convened today to ratify the 122nd Constitution Amendment Bill. So far, the state assemblies of Assam, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Himachal Pradesh, Gujarat, Delhi, Madhya Pradesh have ratified the bill. Now, the government has set a deadline of April 2017 for the GST rollout.
मुझे बहुत खुशी है कि महाराष्ट्र के विधानमंडल ने जीएसटी के कानून को आज एक मत से मान्यता दी है। दोनों सदनों में इसके ऊपर चर्चा हुई और उस चर्चा का जवाब देते समय अर्थमंत्री सुधीर मुनगंटीवार, अर्थ राज्य मंत्री दीपक केसरकर और मैंने स्वयं राज्य को आश्वासित किया है कि ये जो एक कदम केंद्र सरकार ने उठाया है जिससे पूरे देश का एक बाजार तैयार होगा। जो राज्यों के बीच स्पर्धा थी, राज्यों के बीच दीवारें थी, वो दीवारों को हटाने का काम हो रहा है, तो इसका महाराष्ट्र को निश्चित रूप से फायदा होगा।
जीएसटी का बिल है वो पारित हो गया है और केंद्र के यानी लोकसभा राज्यसभा के दोनों सदनों से बिल पारित होकर के विधानसभा में आया था अनुशंसा के लिए, उसको हमने आज अनुशंसा कर दी है।
And a new draft law to punish celebrities for endorsing misleading advertisements will be taken up at a meeting of a group of ministers headed by Finance Minister Arun Jaitley today. Well, under the new draft law, celebrities can be jailed for up to 5 years and face a fine of 50 lakh rupees. The centre had in the month of August last year introduced the Consumer Protection Bill 2015 in the Lok Sabha to repeal the 30-year-old Consumer Protection Act. Now, Parliamentary Standing Committee submitted its recommendations in April. After studying the panel's report, the Consumer Affairs Ministry has accepted some of the key recommendations, such as provisions for fixing liability on celebrities and stringent punishment for adulteration, among others. Amongst all the ministries are in agreement on the proposed provision to impose hefty penalty and imprisonment to celebrities endorsing misleading advertisement as well as those involved in adulteration. Now, Consumer Affairs Minister Ram Vilas Paswan, Law Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad, Health Minister JP Nadda, Power Minister Piyush Goyal, Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari and Commerce Minister Nirmala Sitharaman are also part of the informal GOM. And now a look at the flood situation across several states of the country. Well, with 3 more deaths reported from Khagaria, the toll in Bihar floods has increased to 159. The flood has been caused by spate in rivers Ganga, Son, Punpun, Burhi, Gantak, Ghagra, Kosi and others, and has affected more than 37 lakh people of 12 districts of the state. The government is applying close to 2,800 boats for evacuation, and national and state disaster response forces have already been deployed in the affected areas. Meanwhile, in Uttar Pradesh, the situation has improved. With lesser rainfall in the past few days, the waters in major rivers has started receding. The weather was dry over eastern parts while light rains occurred at the western parts of the state. The rescue operations are going on in the affected areas. Meanwhile, the Allahabad High Court directed district magistrates of all the flood-affected districts in Uttar Pradesh to provide details of the relief work that has been undertaken in their respective areas of jurisdiction. On to some international news now, and about 6,500 migrants have been rescued off Libya in one of the biggest operations of its kind to date. The Italian Coast Guard said that around 40 coordinated rescue missions took place about 20 kilometers off the Libyan town of Sabratha. The rescue ops involved vessels from Italy as well as the EU's border agency Frontex and some NGOs. Well, the video footage shows migrants cheering and some swimming to rescue vessels, while others carried babies aboard. The migrants had set off in overcrowded and unseaworthy vessels to reach the waiting rescuers, while the numbers migrating between Turkey and Greece has fallen substantially after the completion of an agreement between EU and Turkey. Crossings between Libya and Italy remain at near record levels. Last year, more than 1 million migrants arrived in Europe, and this year, so far, close to 3 lakh of them have already entered Europe through various trans-routes, including Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Well, news from Brazil, where the suspended president, Dilma Rousseff, has defended her record during her impeachment trial in the Senate. Now, presenting her defense at a trial in the Senate in what may be her last public appearance as the president, Rousseff said that her conscience was absolutely clean and that she had not committed any crime. Now, in her 40-minute statement, Rousseff proclaimed her innocence and struck a tone which oscillated between that of a defiant warrior and a victimized woman. Her opponents, however, used the question and answer session to assert their claim that Rousseff is undergoing a constitutionally approved trial overseen by the court. Now, senators are cross-examining her. They are due to vote later this week on whether to remove her from office or whether to reinstate her. Now, if the Senate convicts Rousseff, her Vice President Michelle Temer will be sworn in to serve the rest of her term through 2018. Rousseff is accused of illegally manipulating the budget to hide a growing deficit. Meanwhile, both pro and anti-Rousseff protesters and clashes were reported from the streets of Sao Paulo as the impeachment trial went on in the Brazilian Senate. Riot police had to launch tear gas to disperse the protesters.
Sem crime de responsabilidade, qualquer processo de impeachment pela legislação brasileira, esse sim é claro, integral.
Porque nós não podemos nos calar diante desse descalabro. É um golpe de Estado, é uma ruptura da democracia, é uma ruptura institucional, é uma ruptura que não interessa ao povo brasileiro, ao Brasil, à América Latina.
Não é por causa que um presidente vai mal, tá, e o Brasil vai mal, que ela tem que sair, não. Eu não concordo com isso, entendeu? Ela teve voto, ela podia ter ficado até o final da eleição, daqui 2 anos, entendeu?
On to some sporting action. Well, wrestler Yogesh Vardat's bronze medal win in the 60kg freestyle event at the 2012 London Games is said to be upgraded to silver. Well, this after the Russian silver medalist Besik Kudukhov's blood sample tested positive for doping. Now, Kudukov, who died in a fatal car crash in Russia 2 years ago, remains the bronze medalist from 2008 Beijing Olympics. Now, with a medal upgradation, Yogesh will become the second wrestler from India to win a silver medal at the London Games, along with Sushil Kumar, who finished second in the 66kg freestyle wrestling category. The retest is now part of standard Olympic practice, as samples are stored up to 10 years to allow the use of advanced testing methods to weed out dope cheats. And in the latest from the US Open, well, Spain's Rafael Nadal won his first Grand Slam match in more than 3 months, sailing through Denis Istomin of Uzbekistan 6-1, 6-4, 6-2 in the first round of the US Open. Well, Nadal had withdrawn from the French Open in May before the third round due to an injured wrist. Meanwhile, in other matches, US Open runners-up in 2014, Caroline Wozniacki defeated US player Taylor Townsend in a thrilling match which lasted over 2 hours. Remember, the US Open kicked off on Monday with Serena Williams and defending champion Novak Djokovic seated at the top. Italian Flavia Pennetta is the current champion in the women's singles event. She will, however, not be able to defend her title as she retired at the end of 2015 season. Well, that's all in this edition of news. Thanks so much for watching.